Welcome to another session of Ask the Expert on Contingent Workforce LinkedIn group. And this is going to be an amazing show. I've got one of my favorite people in actually the whole wide world. It's so funny. You know, this is a great topic. We're talking on treating your candidate a customer, but I have a feeling this is going to go in lots of different directions and talk about talent management, total talent management, and other great topics. I'm here with Jerome Guerrard from Monster. And I've known Guerrard, Mr. Guerrard for many, many years now. And it's funny how we usually bump into each other and have amazing conversations at various conferences or events, etc. So, you know, I've always wanted just great people that I have had great conversations with on the show. So, you know, I've got Jerome here to talk about treating the candidate a customer, as well as a bunch of other topics. So Jerome, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, Jeff, thanks for having me. Our conversations are always fantastic and epic, and I wish we had body cams as we have gone through all the events in the past. Although now that I say that, probably not.
Yeah, it's probably best in some cases. So, you know, Jerome, you've been through many of economic cycles between the dot-com boom and bust, 9/11, the ups and downs of the credit crunch in 2008, 2009. You've worked primarily in the technology space, in the talent acquisition technology space, but you've also worked for staffing industry folks and ran desks. So, you know, your experience is second to none when talking about both sides of the fence. And, you know, that holy grail of buzzwords out there called total talent management or total talent acquisition, you've actually built technology and seen best practices on both sides, be it for, you know, the enterprise customer that's doing FTE full-time hiring, to the contingent and the staffing customers and those hiring contingent. So I'm so excited to talk to you about the topic today around the treating the candidate as a customer and a bunch of other things, right? So, you know, without further ado, the whole idea of total talent management, what does it mean to you? You've watched it evolve. You've watched both sides kind of come into it, contingent start to grab onto it more and more and market towards it. But what does it mean, and what are some of the things that you're seeing as trends in the total talent management or total talent acquisition space? Are you actually seeing companies come together and recruit both sides, contingent and FTEs?
So, in short, no, I'm not seeing enough of it. What total talent management means to me is sort of what Six Sigma means to manufacturing. And that is, it's a wonderful ideal and it's a goal to strive for. But is anybody really doing it yet? Or are they trying to do it? Yes, they're trying, but are they really doing it? No. And the simple answer is that we have disparate systems. We have different pay streams. And at the end of the day, you need to follow the money, right? And there's total talent management aspects within a certain slice of the pie, whether it's the RPO, the MSP, the VMS vendors. There's aspects of it, but there's no, that I'm aware of, no one single solution that is truly tying all of that together yet.
And so you mentioned some of the buzzwords and the acronyms in our various sides of the space, and you've got the talent acquisition teams, typically of, you know, the handle full-time, and you've got sometimes talent acquisition is dealing with the contingent vendors too, but that tends to be more procurement driven. And you've got staffing agencies kind of in the contingent space as well. You know, the whole idea of direct sourcing has really brought the idea of total talent acquisition up to the forefront, and they talk about it, and you're saying, hey, it's not really well done yet. But what would be some of your thoughts on bringing it together? Is it RPO companies that have traditionally been in the full-time hiring outsourced space moving into contingent? and saying, hey, we can help you with your contingent space? Or is it some of the curation companies moving and becoming RPO companies? Are you seeing some of that convergence? Is the MSPs turning into RPOs and curators on the contingent side? Yeah, is anybody starting to, at least with some of the buzzwords around total talent acquisition, starting to show that they're investing and putting their money where their mouth is?
Yeah, yeah. So companies are putting their money where their mouth is, and you see hints through whether it's the Bullhorn Innovation Fund or Ronstad's Innovation Fund, various seed money aspects from the larger staffing players. You're seeing strategic acquisitions that are all pointing towards a total and comprehensive solution. And within that solution is automation, is chat and engagement capabilities. It's data integrity workflows. There's a number of components in all of this. But at the end of the day, all of those are pieces of a very large puzzle that are still yet to all land on one table, right? Yeah. So you talk about direct sourcing, for example, a brilliant model, and some small companies are having some great success in small segments of their clients' acquisition strategy. But it's still a small aspect of it because the needs are so vast. And that final mile that we've talked about in many instances, where there's compliance, there's onboarding, there's payrolling, there's loss control, there's so many aspects that direct sourcing isn't just a one size fits all, nor is your VMS acquisition strategy. That's not a one size fits all either. So there's just so many aspects, and there's so many pieces of the pie with different revenue streams associated to all the vendors and the suppliers and the professional services, that until there's one unified platform where everybody can get compensated for the work done, it's still just a concept, right?
Yeah. And direct sourcing, it's showing glimmers of hope. And I think there's two reasons for direct sourcing being really a heavy buzzword. I think one, last year it was a talent shortage. Mm-hmm. This year, I think it's cost savings. And if you can hire some of your own folks directly and use a third party to employ them, or even employ them directly, you're saving some of the margin from your traditional staffing agency channels. But when you add the components together, and let's talk more about the components and what's driving some innovation, you've got the technology you need, the curation on top of it, and then the attraction, right?
Yes.
Of workers into it. And so, the technology alone, you've got AI and matching and search capabilities, but then there's that last mile, like you'd mentioned, that the curation specialists come in and help curate and either help with the closing of the person to ensure that they accept the jobs and move forward, and then all the onboarding stuff. So, looking at the technology, there's been some vast improvement, and AI is such a hot topic. You've watched AI and semantic search and all of these kind of cool buzzwords throughout the career, especially over the last 10 years at Monster. Have we gotten to the point where there isn't that last mile, the final mile needed with a human to help, or are we getting there? What are you seeing as some of the trends and some of the examples of cool things that you're seeing?
Yeah, God, no. We're not there yet. There still needs to be that human element where there's verification and validation of certain credentials, certain skills, I-9ing, social security numbers, all that fun stuff that we love in the human capital management space, right? But I'll use a couple sports analogies here. That final mile can be made significantly easier, just as if you were running a marathon. The final mile is doable if you pace yourself. Yeah. If you start off the right way, with the right attitude, the right meal, the right hydration, etc. If you go out and run a 4-minute mile, and you're only capable of 5-minute miles, you know what? That final mile is going to really hurt. so, that first mile is extremely important as well. And that's the big thing that I've been focused on as of late, is making sure that we do treat the candidate as a customer.
Yeah.
We do provide an experience that is going to create the proper first mile, the first introduction, get the relationship started off on the right foot, the right impression, the right understanding, so that there is sharing, there's conversation. And that gets into buzzwords that we are always hearing: data integrity, data management, curation, right? Engagement. None of that works if you're starting off in a bad way, right?
Yeah.
That 4-minute
Well, and you
mile
have to
is
use
not going to
more manual processes to a certain respect if you aren't, designing things up front, targeting people, the attraction, how you're attracting people, where you're searching for candidates to come into your pipeline, and the way you're treating them in the first stages helps make it easier. So the last mile you don't have to do as much work on, to a certain respect. Right.
That's right. And when you think about that first mile, and your employer value proposition, that's another great buzzword, your employer brand, I think your tech stack has a lot to say in that. It's the first thing that a candidate sees in interacting with you more often than not. Like, unless they're getting a cold call from a recruiter, which, that happens, but that next step, like when I look up information about your company, or I go through an apply process, is my social security number the first question that's asked in the apply? Like, that's like asking somebody to marry you on the first date, right? That's whoa, slow down.
What's in your bank account?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you got to kind of slow your roll a little bit and make sure that, this is very conversational and natural, and you're really putting your best foot forward in telling the candidate what's in it for them. Even if you're a staffing company, even if you're not the end client where that candidate is working, you have to be seen as a trusted advisor. You have to be seen as having a modern tech stack to help that candidate through their career journey. Not just this job, not just, hey, do you want a job? But hey, can I work with you throughout your career and give you a higher cadence of opportunities, because we have client relationships, to really advance either how much money you make, how much time off you get, how many new titles you get, right? How can a staffing company create an EVP that really resonates with a candidate? And that's all part of the first mile as well.
Yeah, no, it makes so much sense to really think about that from, like, honestly, targeting where your types of candidates are, to then how you start to engage with them, not only in the first interactions, but subsequent interactions to gain trust, right?
Yeah.
And I think the convergence of what is a full-time job anymore versus a contingent or a contract job, the average tenure of full-time employees, other than yourself, Jerome, is shortening.
Yes.
And the average tenure of gigs, when you get extended, is elongating to almost that they're almost the same timeframes on average.
Exactly.
And so, what is contingent, what is full-time, and then what is the career life cycle of those workers? Who's going to be the best to engage at different points? And you got to be there at the right time, help them, engage with them over time too. It's not just a one and done.
Right.
And so, what are you seeing some of that in best practices, and what technologies are companies let's say even on the FTE side, to what's using on the staffing contingent side? And what are some of the technologies that they're using as best practices in that engagement strategy over the periods of time as well?
Yeah. So the universal theme that I'm seeing out there is a candidate engagement platform or candidate engagement tools that are configured to essentially create an infinity loop of workflow, a closed loop of workflows that really pushes the message out there, talks about employer brand, and then has a call to action that is doable on your phone, right? I jokingly, because everything in our space has acronyms, VMS, ATS, CRM. I call it AWT, apply with thumb. If you can't apply with your thumb, guess what? You've got a 98% bounce rate, 95 at best, right? We just actually did a study on Gen Z, and less than 5% of Gen Z job seekers will apply to a job based upon the job description alone. Okay. That's an important stat here. So this goes to that candidate engagement platform. What is in that? It's landing pages, it's career sites, it's diversity pages, it's military initiatives, it's being what does it mean for them to be a good corporate citizen, right? What are they doing to better their communities? That's what people are looking for in their careers, not just 2 weeks vacation, gold watch at 20-year anniversary. Like, that ended in 1965. Right. It's a different paradigm, and that new paradigm requires different tools. And that's where I see candidate engagement tools being the most important culmination. So whether it's staffing or our enterprise level clients that are with, arguably very different applicant tracking systems, right? The enterprise are really designed for compliance, onboarding, reporting, et cetera. Whereas the ATS is typically in the staffing space are designed to be more nimble and more candidate friendly, but also drive recruiter KPIs. Neither one is really designed for holistic engagement and storytelling. Right. And that's a big focus that I've had at Monster over the last year, is how do we get a nimble story out to the market that is very specific and focused. And here's what I mean by that. A lot of companies will build their employer brand. They'll have a great mission statement, and they'll spend hundreds of thousands of dollars with an agency, and they'll spend that much more again on advertising and talking about it. But how do you talk to your engineering group in Detroit, Michigan specifically? How do you speak to the accountants you're looking for in New York City specifically, right? How do you speak to your your diversity initiative audiences and your military audiences? How do you have that agility, right? That's a hard thing to do when you have systems and processes and agencies and so many hands in the soup, So that's a big component of candidate engagement, is the agility to speak to and engage with different audiences.
And that's huge. It's challenging, but I think technology will help with that, right? And that's
100%. Now think, our competitors here in our space, because let's face it, HR tech, staffing technology, we're 5 years at best behind e-com and advertising, right? So our competitors here are not other ATSs, not other staffing companies. The competition is experiences like Uber, like Amazon, Netflix. Pick your large company that's absolutely skyrocketed over the last few years, right? The digital mobile experiences that they generate for their consumers to bring them in and consume more and more and more is the same thing job seekers are expecting. Gen Z is expecting. And if they're not seeing it, they're moving on.
And that's unbelievable when you put it like that. But I've often said, if it's not an Instagram feel to it, you've lost the attention span of the next generation of candidates, and most generations of candidates these days, because the technology is kind of really, especially over the pandemic, we all use the technology and we've gotten used to it. So it set that expectation.
It's funny you say that. Like you and I are of a similar age, and I think the only economic boom or bust that I missed was probably the California gold rush at this point in time. But I expect the same thing. I'm not Gen Z. I'm Gen
Yeah.
X, right? And I expect the same thing. Don't, a lot of people are saying, that's just, kids. It's not true, right? I'm expecting the same type of experience. I want to know everything about this company, and I want to know what's in it for me. And I want an experience that's super easy. Because I'm so old, I forget all my passwords. I can't create a username and password and remember, keep all that, squared away, right? I want it easy.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. So, going back to the, all of what we've talked about around total talent acquisition, the direct sourcing, the AI matching, it really does come down to thinking strategically, right, about who you're trying to hire, customizing that experience for that target, and really living the brand and really knowing your employment brand and employment value prop to that target now, not just the general advertised public, right?
Yes. And so, the joke is the most expensive words in business are, we've always done it that way, right? And unfortunately, I still hear that over and over again because of that final mile concept. Like, I need this information to pay them. I need this information to report on. I need OFCCP information, on and on and on. And I get that, and I understand that. And I'm not trying to minimize that. What I'm saying is, if we do a better job up front, we can grease the skids to get that information in a more seamless manner. And part of that is being more nimble, being more open-minded to that first outreach, that first touch point, and what we use in that experience to then nurture, engage, and then get that information, right? As opposed to, like I said, social security number as the first question.
There you have it, folks. The
Proudest.
first mile is as important as the last mile, and probably more important. We've heard it here first from Jerome Guerrard from Monster. And Jerome, thank you for the conversation, taking time out of your day. It's always so amazing to have conversations with you. And I know the audience will love it. So thanks again.
Jeff, my pleasure. Always great talking to you.